when I was MD of HAL, I had suggested to government of Karnataka to make use of this. At that time, everybody was saying the gas is not there. What is the use of pursuing this project? But now the time has come when the industry can really make use of this production of power to the gas turbines. It does not require too much of actually infrastructure. And the technology is based on the used aero engines of aircraft, which are just grounded for not any other reason because life has slightly expired. These are the cost-effective solution all over the world. In America.
What is the minimum size?
Size actually it varies from Rolls-Royce gas turbine will be around 5 kilowatt to 10 kilowatt. Then LM2500 from GE will be 30 kilowatt. Then Pratt & Whitney will have nearly 70 to 110 kilowatt.
It's too small.
No, for the captive power plants. Actually, these are used in the for the captive power plants for small industries, townships.
Yeah, please note down if anybody would like to use our gas to produce power.
And the packaging is available with people like Kirloskar Electric and all. They can do the packaging. We had an MOU with Kirloskar Electric in HAL to promote this for the townships, for the villages. These are used actually on the by ONGCs and other on the rigs.
Thank you.
So this actually can be utilized very well. And MRO is available here. Production is available here. And the lead companies like Rolls-Royce or GE or Pratt & Whitney, everybody is keen to come on this business.
Thank you. Yeah. Next question, please.
Yeah, I'm here.
Just introduce yourself also.
I'm Tosha Homasji. On your left.
Yes, sir.
Morning. Yeah, it was very nice to hear about the macro development that you're proposing. The primary drivers of any industrial growth would, in terms of industry type, would be the SME growth, as we see in Japan or in Germany. But in order to drive these, do you have a plan in order to get technology first over here? Because the first driver of any industrial corridor or industrial park area would to bring in industrial support technology and also to build up competence to use this technology.
Okay.
I haven't finished on this. To earn the respect of industry internationally as well as in our domestic area, competence has been a major factor. Not even 5% of our engineering students today end up in engineering. I say this because I chair the National Knowledge Function Hub, which plans to bring industry and academia together. So is there any drive that before you set up and acquire this land and allocate it to big multinationals, which naturally are also a focus for you, is there this competence that you are planning? I'm glad that you already touched upon it, and so did Mr. Felton, to say that skills on one side is definitely an important factor, but I'm talking about major skills, competence in the postgraduate area or post-diploma area. Do you have the technology and skills combination planned in any way?
Yes, as far as technology is concerned, I would suggest that it has to be through the private sector. Government cannot say that this technology is you take or this technology you import. But however, Government of Karnataka provides incentive for upgradation of technology. We have something called KCTU, Karnataka Council for Technology Upgradation. They provide funds and especially incentive for getting IPR. They give incentive for upgrading the standards, even to get BIS standard for SMEs mainly. The CASIA is aware of that. We do give incentive to get in ISI certificate, BIS certificate, or other international standard certificates. But I suggest that it has to be driven by the private sector. But whatever you want us to do, we'll certainly do in technology upgradation. There are some funds, for example, for textile industry, there are funds for technology upgradation in textile sector. And coming to skills, I don't know if you are aware that Government of Karnataka has set up Government Tool Room and Training Center. I was the chairman for some time. GTTC has set up GTTC centers in almost every district. Tumkur has got one Government Tool Room and Training Center. In Rajajinagar, we have excellent facility. I'm happy to inform you that many of our students coming out of this institution go to Australia, Singapore, even this side, Eastern and Western countries. They're in great demand, and many of them have become entrepreneurs. Similarly, would like to set up the world-class ITIs in this NIMZ. Skill upgradation and employability is very important, not only at diploma and ITI level, post-diploma, as well as, of course, engineering and R&D sector. There are many R&D projects of Government of India, or CISR is providing incentives for that. Yes, there is a need to make our students employable and world-class. When they are in IT, when they go abroad, they are really in great demand and they are doing well. Maybe we need to look at people who remain here in India and upgrade their skills, employability. Thank you.
So I was speaking on a different level. I was speaking of industry, academia, training, as against already the thing.
I think it's already there. If you are aware, we had offered many of our ITIs for adoption by the industry. Some of them have done it. L&T, for example, has come forward. Reliance is training for, of course, for retailing. NTTF, GTTC is nothing but NTTF. Yeah. NTTF, yes, not only that, we are permitting, if any of the industrial houses would like to adopt our ITIs, there is also some incentive for private industries to set up ITIs. There's a scheme of Government of India and Government of Karnataka.
Thank you. I'd like to encourage lots of people to ask questions, so can you be brief, because I'm sure there are many questions. Thanks.
Good evening, sir. My name is Shikhar. I represent Chancery Group of Hotels. My question is, along the corridors, can you also see small cities getting developed along that corridors?
Small cities.
Cities, along the corridors between Bangalore to Chennai.
Like in DMIC corridor. As of now, no new townships per se are envisaged, but as part of the NIMZ, that is, as part of the industrial estates, there will be a township. So yes, you may call it a new city. Maybe for 1 lakh population, we'll be developing a city in Vasant Narsapura. Similarly, in Mulbagal, if as and when it comes up. And there will be many extensions in the existing industries, as well as, yes, once an industrial unit comes, once an industrial township comes, there will also be a housing township.
Sir, I'm Vijay Kumar. Thanks a lot for making Bangalore a manufacturing hub. But how can we be cost effective globally? How can we become cost competitive?
No, you have to answer that, not we, but yes, we are trying to bring down the cost of doing business. You know, I was in HUDCO before coming here. The real estate developers were telling that their additional cost is something like 22 to 25%, including delay in approvals. They need to get 46 approvals from different agencies. So we would like to reduce. That is one of the objectives of setting up NIMZ. We would like to see that Government of India as well as Government of Karnataka offices are located in the industrial estate. They don't have to run to Bangalore, and clearances will be given by that authority. Even, for example, building permits. Today, Electronic City, anybody would like to alter or build one more floor in Electronic City, he doesn't have to come to any of the Gram Panchayat. Sometimes it's Gram Panchayat which has to approve the building plans. They have been empowered to provide building plans, and other civic agencies will also be under the control of that township. So in NIMZ, the town authority will provide all the clearances, civic clearances, and excise department, customs department, maybe your sales tax, pollution control board, all other departments, labor department. There will also be special labor laws planned in this NIMZ, so that, of course, we have to protect the interest of labor. There will be a special exit policy. So exit policy is also being worked out. Of course, in consultation with the labor unions and people who will be affected. All stakeholders will be involved. Cost of doing business has to come down. And of course, cost of power, if it can be brought down. And efficiency of manufacturing will have to go up. A skilled manpower will certainly produce more than the unskilled.
Morning. My name is Prakash. I'm an advisor and consultant in the agri-food processing area. Very happy to know about the time frame. I'm very happy that our children at least would have some bright future. That's one thing. And then coming to the question of the time frame, another 15, 20 years is what the government is talking about. Exactly the same time frame is when I think we are all aware that there are going to be serious problems with regard to food security. My request is that the industry should not work in isolation. It should also work with the agriculture and food processing area so that they develop supply chain infrastructure, which is very much required for the corridors and the country actually.
Actually, I have a different idea about food security. I don't think India will have any food shortage even after 20 years, 30 years. Our productivity is so low that if we increase our productivity to the level of Punjab or Haryana, we can feed double of India's population. Japan, I'm not comparing with Japan or any other country where productivity is quite high. Our productivity is low. Now that Government of India is proposing, even state government is proposing drip irrigation, subsidy for drip irrigation, for irrigation efficient use of water. If we can use our land and water properly, I don't think there will be ever any food shortage with the existing technology of seeds. I'm also confident that seed technology is going to improve. There will be productivity of our seeds will go up. So therefore, we need not be pessimistic about it. This is one of the reasons for stalling the acquisition of land, saying that food security will be affected. You know, we are acquiring how many? Maybe we'll acquire about 2% of agricultural land. Today we are growing at 2% in agriculture, maybe 3%. But if we can really grow at about 5 to 6%, which is not impossible, then we can acquire much more land if need be. See, if you see my presentation, food processing industry is one of the identified industries in this NIMZ. And the agriculture department itself is working towards that. And we have a good understanding with them. Food processing industry, as well as, including horticulture, will be our focus in the coming years. The wastage itself is huge. If we can cut down the wastage by 2%, I think even that will be tackled. For example, we need to provide food chain, the cold chains have to be provided, storage facilities have to be provided. It's already there in the agenda of state government as well as central government. With this provision of infrastructure for agriculture, I'm sure things will be much better.
Hello, sir. Thiago Valiava from Bangalore Chamber. I think you touched upon a lot of these points, but then I just wanted to, one thing we always come across in the Bangalore Chamber is decongest Bangalore. So I think perfect example is Peenya. If you could have a tax concession for companies from Peenya to move out towards Tumkur or further down Tumkur, and give them some special economic zone. Because today Bangalore is, I think some of us have got delayed in the morning to come because Bangalore is congested. So one thing is from the industry side, if you can decongest Bangalore, move the present industries which are already consuming a lot of traffic and space, that could do a great deal of good for Bangalore. And secondly, also looking at the China model, if you look at the Guangzhou model, how they've actually gone about making a center. So if you could, instead of having all industries, if you could look at a particular specific industry, maybe 4 or 5, have the best practices inside that. So for example, you have the GST coming out in the next few months or years, I don't know when, but then you could have a huge, I think one of the speakers was talking, you could have a huge warehousing zone. Because once the GST comes out, then you don't have any states. You could, from Andhra, from Maharashtra, from Karnataka, from Tamil Nadu, you could have a centralized warehousing zone. And I think center of Karnataka is a great opportunity for us to have a warehousing zone. I would propose this because that would really, look at the dynamics in southern India.
Yeah. I have counter proposal to you. You give me the land free of cost in Peenya, I'll give you free land as well as other infrastructure plus incentives elsewhere, outside Bangalore. You are sitting on gold mine. Many of you are converting land for other purpose. There's nothing wrong in it after taking the approval. Yes, if Peenya people would like to go to NIMZ, we'll see that land is given to you and incentives. I don't want to use force, but there will be pull factors and push factors.
I'm not saying
there
force,
will be
I'm
pull
saying
factors.
attract them. I'm saying attract them by
Yes,
giving
certainly.
them.
That's what I'm telling. Pull as well as push, both will be there. If you want us to push, we'll push you. But I feel that there will be pull factors and we'll provide incentives in NIMZ I'm going to Pina, maybe next month, whenever they call me. I will certainly tell them that if they would like to have maybe all the Pina industries shifted elsewhere, we can certainly do that. When I was in the industries department, we thought of even acquiring special land for them. But they would like to be next to Bangalore. That's the problem. Like Malleshwaram, people would like to be in Malleshwaram. They would not like to go to even Yelahanka. So I want you to think over it, and the association has to decide. You can certainly work on it, or the kind of industries that need to be located or be in Pina, non-polluting industries, or even noise pollution will not be created. Such industries can still remain, and then maybe other industries can move, it's depending on the interest.
Yeah, I'm Amitabh Saxena from Nexus Lean and Six Sigma Consulting. Some of the issues you raised, like ease of doing business or approval delay or costs, can be traced to the corruption which we see and which we all of us are aware of. So what is the government doing about that? And can we see the real drastic difference between what has been and what in the next 3 to 4 months? Because this can be, only the government can take an action on that. So what are the things which government is planning to do differently to reduce the corruption?
Okay. Start with the state government. You are aware that Sakala has been introduced, and we have got many awards, national as well as international awards. The Sakala is to ensure government services in a given period of time. If you do not deliver, okay, whether it's 2 days or 10 days or 20 days or 45 days or 90 days for land conversion, the concerned officer or the clerk who is responsible will be fined. And this delivery has been almost 99% in many of the services. So we have more than, I think, 300 services. Also, I was away from the state government for long, but I think more than 300 services of the state government have been brought under Sakala, and the experience has been very good, excellent, this thing. Similarly, if you people identify any services that is provided to the industries, but you should learn to wait also in the queue. The corruption is both ways. Sometimes industrialists would like to jump, whether it's allocation of resources, mining or coal or anything, or even land. If you wait for your turn, within that period, suppose we have to deliver the service within 30 days, you should have the patience to wait for 30 days, because others in front of you have been waiting. So together, we can certainly bring down corruption. The transparency is being improved. E-governance has been introduced. For example, e-tendering has been introduced in almost all the departments of state government. Even central PSU's e-governance has been introduced. E-tendering has been introduced. Now, I read recently that the central government is even doing away with the files. Only the email and e-governance will be introduced by NIC. Of course, government of Karnataka has introduced e-governance in many of the activities like Kaveri, Bhumi. So we have many initiatives. That is one. Of course, Lokayukta, government of Karnataka was the first one to introduce Lokayukta in the country. And Lokpal, I'm sure, will also come through. Thank you.
So, Ramaswamy from Connect Projects. So there's one suggestion what I want you to take up. Now we have taken over the KSID chairman. Many of the problems we face in attracting the large anchor industries and also large utilities is on the clearances, which sometimes take more than 2 years. Now we know that these are the areas in which we are going to have industries. So we also know that we are going to attract a Toyota or a steel plant or a large power plant in these locations. Would it be possible to have pre-approved projects? Say a 100 megawatt power plant is coming here, it's pre-approved. Or a large automobile plant on 5,000 acres is pre-approved. So we'll be able to attract people and that much time is cut short. Do you think it's a possibility?
The NIMZ concept is that only, in the sense we have environmental clearance for that entire area. Maybe the kind of industries which are coming will be given, but environmental clearance, pollution control board clearance will have to be taken by each of the industries if it is a polluting industry. And other clearances would like to see that it's given by delegation of powers to the individual officers at that level. And yes, in some of the PPP projects, for example, the Bangalore International Project was a pre-clearance project. We had taken all the clearances and then went ahead with, yes, it will happen in PPP projects. And in industries, we'll work together. That's what I'm requesting BCIC to give us some suggestions how, knowing the constraints of the government, what else can be done, how else we can make ease of doing business much better.
Sir, we have done a study on doing business in Karnataka, which the preliminary report is going to get released today evening, and then we will have a larger dialogue where we are pointing out specific areas for improvement with suggestions. I think we are well past the time, so one last question, and then we will conclude.
This is Naresh from a company called Huses, and my question is simple. If the two corridors are being developed, how are we going to get the power and water for that corridor? And how many projects are going to come which are in a power generation sector in that kind of a corridor?
Actually, as I told you, since gas is coming, power will not be a problem if it is gas-based power. We also have Kudgi project, about 2,000 to begin with, maybe 4,000 megawatt of NTPC power, which is under implementation. Maybe in the next 3 years, it should start producing power. And we have other proposals already. I'm not very sure. At that time, it was almost about 15,000 megawatt power projects which are approved. Maybe they will take off as and when demand goes up. I'm sure the people who have industries in Chennai would know that power situation in Karnataka is much better. We do not have any power cut for industries. Of course, there is a need to improve it. We have now, of course, Udupi Power, which is closed for maybe for time being.